As most of you know, each year the Development Office holds a competition among the reunion classes as a challenge to increase a class's gifts and donor participation over the previous year. This year we recognize Richard Burt, Chip Campbell, Norfleet Thompson, and Josh Winters in the class of 1999 for the highest increase in participation, and Scott Sherman from the class of 1989 for the highest gift amount from a reunion class. This year, 302 reunion donors contributed $136,719 to the annual fund. This year, we're pleased to recognize an outstanding volunteer. The Volunteer of the Year is an MUS alumnus who serves Memphis University School in a significant and needed way while seeking out opportunities to promote the interest of the school. Johnny Cruz graduated from MUS in 1984 and enrolled in the University of Mississippi that fall. He graduated with a bachelor's degree in business administration. Then he went on to the University of Memphis, where he completed his MBA in finance. As a student, Johnny's student involvement mirrored his future role as an alumnus, as a dedicated member of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, the Civic Service Organization, and the U Club. Johnny served the student body and community while supporting the camaraderie and culture unique to MUS. When former teacher Norm Thompson was asked if he had any memories of Johnny, he replied, "Of course, he's Holt Cruz's brother." In recent years, Johnny's worn 2 volunteer hats, serving on the Alumni Executive Board and as the Lynn Society President. He has done so with equal focus and attention to both. While his focus and commitment to the Alumni Board was impressive, today we are recognizing him for his leadership as the Lynn Society President. The Lynn Society is the donor level for gifts over $5,000 to the school's annual fund, named after Colonel Ross M. Lynn. Under Johnny's leadership, the Lynn Society reached a record high of 77 members. During his 2-year term as president, gifts by Lynn Society members totaled over $1.1 million and accounted for 40% of annual fund dollars. This total is the most raised by any Lynn Society president to date. The school benefits from his leadership in his roles as an alumnus and parent of 2 alumni, and he continues to support the school in whatever way is needed. Johnny and his wife Michelle have 2 sons, Tripp, class of 13, and George, class of 17. Johnny, will you please join me to receive this token of our appreciation?
Thank you, Andy. I appreciate it. And thank you all for being here. I'm glad to accept this on behalf of my brother Holt. As Norman, just go back and check the record books and you'll understand why. But anyway, I was just laughing about this with Michelle when Ann said that I've been nominated. I was like, yeah, they're really scraping the bottom of the barrel now. But since the time that Ann told me that I'd been nominated for this, I had a lot of time to kind of think about and reflect on what does it mean to be a volunteer or to volunteer. And fortunately for all of us, I did come to the conclusion that it doesn't mean we have to walk around with an orange baseball cap with a big T on the front of it. So, but really, the best insight that I have seen on the subject lately, and especially in regards to MUS, is from Headmaster Pete Sanders. In the most recent issue of MUS Today, Pete begins with the adage in his, from the headmaster essay, he begins with the adage, "To whom much is given, much is expected." And this adage is taken from Luke chapter 12, verse 48, in which Jesus is admonishing his disciples about always being prepared. And he tells them that from everyone who has been given much, much will be demanded. And from the one who has been entrusted with much, much more will be asked. I was blessed to grow up in a family where this philosophy was taught, not so much by words, but really by actions. My parents were and continue to be role models for ordering my life. And I can remember growing up, and even in recent years, both of my parents readily accepting requests to help out with this project or with that committee, or just helping someone less fortunate who had a need. And all the while doing this not for any recognition, but because it was the right thing to do or because the need was there. It's been wonderful over the years to see how MUS students, teachers, and alumni get involved in the Memphis community, whether it's students or faculty, and faculty who are involved in the civic service organization, making sure that certain service opportunities are organized and communicated to students, and also to see the students respond in a much bigger way than anyone expected or was prepared for. Or whether it's alumni in Memphis who are giving their time and money to great organizations like Memphis Gridiron Ministries, Service Over Self, and Streets Ministry. It's always great to see how MUS has made service a priority and emphasized giving back in so many ways, and to see how students, faculty, and alumni have responded to this call. I believe I couldn't say it any better than Pete did in closing his essay in MUS today, and these are Pete's words. As I see it, MUS Owls, to whom much is given, especially an outstanding liberal arts education that emphasizes character and service, give back much more. It's great to be a part of MUS, and even better to see how the spirit of giving back is alive and well at MUS today. Thank you.
Well said, Johnny. Thank you very much. The Alumnus of the Year award is given to an MUS alumnus who exemplifies community leadership and personal integrity, personifying MUS's guiding principles of developing well-rounded men of strong moral character. While it is not uncommon for multiple MUS alumni to play significant roles in our community, this year we honor 3 of our alumni for their contributions to Memphis. No doubt each of these alums would tell you that the Crosstown Concourse project was supported by countless people on top of their game, working together for a common goal. Many of those people were in fact fellow MUS alumni. However, today we recognize Brett Grinder, class of 91, Gil Uhlhorn, class of 93, and Maclean Wilson, class of 96, for their leadership roles they played in the recent Sears Crosstown redevelopment project. Each with their own area of expertise, they worked together with the common goal of revitalizing a structure to create a neighborhood within a building. Brett Grinder left Memphis following graduation to attend the Georgia Institute of Technology, where he graduated cum laude with a Bachelor of Civil Engineering. After working as an office engineer for an Atlanta group, he returned to Memphis in 1996 to join Grinder, Tabor, and Grinder. For the Crosstown undertaking, Grinder, Tabor, and Grinder filled the role of general contractor on the massive project, and under Brett's leadership was responsible for executing the vision. Preliminary estimations, subcontractor management, and actual construction were all handled by Grinder and his team. Although challenging, this vertical village concept with a mixture of residential and commercial spaces was designed with purpose to allow natural interaction between the residents, employees, customers, and students that visit it daily. The final product shows design elements that nod to both Memphis and the Sears Corporation that brought so much initial life to the building. Gil Uhlhorn was involved from the beginning with the acquisition of the property. Gil attended Washington and Lee University and graduated cum laude with a Bachelor of Arts. He went on to earn his Juris Doctor degree from the University of Tennessee College of Law. An attorney with Bass, Berry & Sims, Gil's background in real estate transactions provided the trusted insight needed for the financing piece of the project. Throughout his career, Gil has represented local, regional, and national owners and developers on real estate and corporate matters. As for the Crosstown project, he has described the task as Herculean and marvels at the finished project and product and what it offers so many people in the neighborhood that was in need of revitalization. While the project had its challenging moments, Gil, known by his clients as a problem solver and clear-headed and reasonable, stuck to his negotiating skills to resolve the trials the team faced along the way. Our final honoree and the leader of the development team to raise this urban village is Maclean Wilson. McLean earned his Bachelor of Science in Commerce from the McIntire School of Commerce at the University of Virginia and went on to Dartmouth College to earn his MBA. He currently serves as the Chief Information Officer of the Kimmons Wilson Hospitality Partners, President of Valor Hospitality, and oversees KWC's real estate activities. Wilson found comfort in the fact that the partnerships involved in this project were all Memphis-based and shares the credit with each of these Memphians and fellow Owls for what was accomplished. McLean had a vision and dream of what the Sears building could become, and his knowledge of what was involved from the real estate side helped make this endeavor special. The By Memphis, for Memphis theme for this project ran deep from start to finish thanks to McLean's leadership in identifying the financing, architects, and contractors, as well as managing the design process. A thriving community would be considered the ultimate success for this team, and that may not be fully realized for several years. But for now, the excitement that the Crosstown team brought to an abandoned shell, previously known as a model of industry in progress, has initiated a wave of growth and restoration in an area of Memphis that was in need of being rediscovered. Gentlemen, will you please join me at the podium and show our thanks for them. Fine? Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it. Let y'all say a few words.
Age before beauty? You want to alphabetical order, maybe? All right. Well, thank you. What a great room. I'm so excited to be here. This is really a huge treat. And I just want to briefly say how humbling and surprising it is to be recognized this way by the MUS community. I want to say thanks to Andy for all those kind comments. I'm not sure he got my Georgia Tech record entirely right, but I like it better the way he said it. Thanks to the Alumni Board, everything y'all do is just incredibly important to the school. The portrait series, Mr. Sanders often says that, how important that is, and it makes a huge difference, I think, on recruiting. And thanks for voting for me, including my brother-in-law, Alex Walford, who may have cooked the vote a little bit, but, so I get to be here today. And I want to say I couldn't be in greater company than being recognized with these two guys, alongside McLean and Gil. I'm the oldest of the group, so I get to talk first, I guess. But I'm the lowest on the totem pole because they're both my clients. And I look back, and the last time that MUS ever did this, a group of three of us, was Pitt Hyde, Staley Cates, and Andy Cates back in 2002. So we're in pretty good company. And interestingly, I grew up around the corner from McLean, and I'd never met him before at Crosstown. Even though Miss Norma taught my kids to, swim and known that family forever, I just never knew McLean. But we became pretty fast friends through the Crosstown stuff, and quickly built a trust between us. But now that's over, I know him even better. And I realize real estate's not his primary, calling in life. He should be a male fashion model. I saw him in Florence, Alabama a couple weekends ago, and he was just dying to get up on the stage with Billy Reed, I can tell. And then Gil, Gil and I had a prior business relationship. He was president of the university club a while back and was kind enough to hire me to redo the fitness center there at the U Club and the locker rooms. We had a great time doing it. At the very end of the project, Gil used his counterfeiting skills, and he had a bunch of $1,500 bills printed up to pay our final change order for the project, which I thought was pretty enterprising, and I could still consider it legal tender. But I'm not sure where he gained all those skills. They probably have some origins at his time at MUS, and I can relate. My friends over there at that table, their main extracurricular activity was the government club. We weren't the athletes, but in the 80s, we'd always go to Nashville once a year for youth and government, and we learned a lot there under the watchful eye of Guy Amsler. And we were also an enterprising group, and so one year we returned from generally victorious from our travels up there. We'd passed a lot of fake bills, made a lot of fake laws, and then we realized the Tennessee Blue Books that they give us had a perfect seal that was high resolution enough to transfer over to a Polaroid photograph and make ourselves some fake IDs to go out to newbies on Friday night. And that was just one of the many benefits of a classical MUS education. But then a prior recipient of this award, a guy by the name of David Sachs, kind of did us one better. He had a fancy new Macintosh computer, and he made digital versions of the analog IDs and put us out of the Polaroid business pretty quick. It's too bad we didn't recognize how important those skills were and follow Mr. Sachs a little more closely, investing after school. But my time at MUS was great, and the list of faculty and the teachers that shaped me here are long and varied. Came in the 7th grade, and the lower school was presided over by Mr. Springfield. He was a tough and fair guy, and he was. We always heard he was a Golden Gloves boxer. I don't even know if that's true, but all the 7th graders believed it. Gene Thorne was our headmaster at the time, and he was as impressive a leader as you're ever going to meet. But the English department really had the most work to do on me. I came from Harding Academy, so I wasn't a typical PDS guy. I wasn't all that prepared. They had a lot to do with my vocabulary and my grammar, and I had all the greats. I had Eichner, Shelton, Russell, Askew, and Thompson, and I still keep an OEH in my office for reference. Then I went to Science Building, Mr. Matthews, Mr. Emerson, Ms. Cannon. They all prepared me for chemistry and physics and were far better than any professor I had at Georgia Tech. Mr. Brown taught us computer languages, and it made a lot of sense to me after one of his lectures. Then I got to Dr. Dahl's class, and French didn't quite make so much sense to me. He didn't do such a good job with me. But if we needed a break from all that tutelage, we'd slip into Mr. Dedrick's office during free period, and he would tell us how the world really worked while we studied, and he smoked his cigarettes. But I would say MUS has had more of an impact on me than anything in my life, with the exception of my marriage. And that's inextricably linked with MUS, because Megan and I met in Mr. Schmidt and Mr. Russell's humanities class our senior year. We didn't talk to each other much in class, but thanks to Christopher Lamberson over there needing a wingman for a date, he got me to go out with her, and I still feel lucky to have her by my side. And the photo of all the MUS alumni that attended our wedding is one of my prized possessions. Our daughter Ann just graduated from Hutchinson this year, and my son Edward's a sophomore at MUS. And I can tell you through him, MUS is doing a better job today educating boys than ever before. Mr. Torrey gave Edward the same fundamentals that Mr. Shelton gave me in the lower school, and Mr. Sanders and Mr. Large have instilled a love of history in him greater than mine. Mr. Askew is still teaching. He's teaching him American Lit, and Dr. Eric Dahl is doing a considerably better job teaching him French than his dad did with me. So I'm confident in our next generation of leaders coming at 6191 Park. But it's also appropriate this is being held during homecoming week. Almost all of our class headed out of town for college in the fall of '91, as most MUS guys do. Some of them, like Flynn over there, came back a little faster than the others. But everyone eventually comes back. Megan's heading out of town this weekend to go see our daughter, so the first thing I did was email that table over there and ask Flynn and Pogue and Lamberson and Alpert who was going to go with me to the game on Friday night. So my social life has not changed a whole lot since 1991. My date is a serious downgrade since I'm going to be going to the game with David Waddell. And I want to say thanks to Megan, to all my in-laws, the Welfords and the Tabors, who always support me in everything I do. I want to say thanks to my brother Justin, who's also my business partner, my dad, and my mom. The construction business was actually in a recession back in the 80s when we first got to MUS, but they never wavered on their commitment and made all the financial sacrifices necessary for us to have the experience we had there. But I'm really grateful to each of you in this room, and I'm really grateful to be a part of MUS's ongoing success. I think John Springfield said it best when he said, "How kind the fate that brought us to these halls."
I'm next. So thank you all for coming out this afternoon, and a special thank you to my family and friends who were able to join us here today. I want to start by saying how honored and humbled I am to receive this recognition. MUS has always been a special place to me, and even more so now that I'm paying 2 tuitions and will be for a few more years to come. And more than any other institution, MUS helped mold me into the person that I am today. Thank you to the Alumni Board for even considering me for this honor. However, it is even more special to be receiving this award with 2 other MUS alum who I respect tremendously and am honored to call friends. McLean and Brett are tops in their industry, and we've had the opportunity to work together, as Brett mentioned, on several projects over the past, and I hope that we have the opportunity to work together on many more projects for years to come. But as you've heard, the one project that took the most blood, sweat, and tears from all of us was the Crosstown Concourse. I vividly remember sitting in my office on December 26th, 2014 with McLean and reflecting on how neither one of us could imagine working again on a project with so many moving parts that had to come together just right just to get started on the renovation, not even to mention the completion, stabilization, or profitability. It was a multi-year journey to put this project together, and these types of projects come with many successes and near failures, and they bring stories to reflect on. I thought it might be fun to share a few stories to you, a little inside baseball about how the Crosstown Concourse came together. And I'll let McLean go last so he can refute a couple of these. So after working for over a year to get the city of Memphis to support the project, the city council granted a $15 million grant to be put into the project. We structured the plan to get the city funds into the project in a way that worked both for the city and for the project itself. But by October of 2014, ensuring that the city got their funds in on time started to become very critical. So McLean requested that we have a meeting with Mayor Wharton in hopes that he might be able to kind of light a fire under his team to make sure that they got their funds in on time. We gathered in the main conference room down at City Hall about 8 a.m. one morning, and Mayor Wharton came in about 8:15, a little late, characteristically well-dressed and very poised, but a little frazzled, and we came to learn that he'd been at a prior meeting about the city's dire pension funds. So he sits down at the head of the table and asks, "What can I do for you guys?" So McLean starts out by very graciously expressing our gratitude to the city's support, but that we were a little concerned about the timing of the city's funds getting into the project. So the mayor interrupted McLean and turned. We were all on one side of the table and his people were on the other. He turns to his people and asks, what the delay was. And as soon as Robert Lipscomb started to speak, Mayor Wharton slams his hand on the table. Very uncharacteristic of the mayor. Books jump up, everything starts to fly, and he shouts, and you can attest, it was a shout. His watch broke. And I think I have this quote right. He says, "Oh, hell no. You can't come in here today and ask my skinny ass to solve this problem for you. You guys need to figure out how to get this done for these good people." He stands up, thanks us for our time, and walks out. Everyone in the room was stunned at seeing this new side of the mayor, and we filed out in virtual silence. I'm really not sure that the city team moved any faster after that meeting, but the funds did come in on time. Second, as you can imagine, there were several times during this project where it really seemed like it wasn't going to happen. But looking back now, I think the closest we came to full crater was what we call Appraisal Gate Christmas Eve 2014. Now I realize we closed financing December the 29th, 2014, so this really was the 0 hour. The commitments from the new market tax credit investors were going to expire on December 13th, and Brett's subcontractors' bids were only locked in through December 31st. So our hope was we get to closing and then can turn it over to Brett and he does his thing. So when I left work on December the 23rd, everything seemed like we were set to close on December 29th. All we had left was a pile of paperwork the size of Mount Kilimanjaro to finalize and sign. McLean, that was a ton of fun. And a flow of funds to decode. Then the emergency texts started blowing up all of our phones. It seems that one of the credit guys at SunTrust in Atlanta had finally looked at the appraisal and decided that it wasn't going to work. And he was demanding that we get a new appraisal from a new appraiser. Not going to happen. This guy was like the weatherman breaking into the Super Bowl to warn you of a thunderstorm in Oklahoma. He was excited to be the center of attention and reveling in his importance, while everyone else involved in the deal was supremely annoyed and plotting his demise. Christmas Eve services throughout Memphis, Atlanta, and Washington, D.C. were spoiled as we tried clandestinely to solve this problem from the pews. I think it was finally about 11 p.m., Libby can probably confirm, on Christmas Eve, when McLean finally, out of sheer force of will, and many words not appropriate for the Christmas season, finally convinced SunTrust to cry uncle. It really was that close to never getting off the ground. Finally, and probably my favorite, in the fall of 2014, as closing was approaching, the lenders and tax credit investors requested weekly conference calls. That's not unusual in a real estate transaction as you lead up to closing to make sure everybody's on the same page. What was unusual about these calls were there were over 70 participants invited. So every Tuesday at 1 p.m., I would dial into the conference line, and for the next 5 minutes, you would just hear beep, 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 as everybody in the deal was joining the call. By the way, McLean was quick to learn that he didn't want to dial in and would call in about 1:05-ish after everybody else had dialed in because he knew we couldn't start without him. So the way these calls would start, one of the DC lawyers would lead it. And generally he would start out with a roll call of all the participants. After about the third call, the lawyer said something along the lines of, "Why don't we get started? Let's start with our roll call." To which McLean nonchalantly responded, "Roll call, shaboom, sha, sha, shaboom." There was complete silence on the call. All 70 people thought that McLean had truly broken up and the pressure had gotten to him. After a few awkward seconds of silence, McLean pipes back in, "I guess only Gil and I get that. Maybe we should move on." So as you can imagine, with a project like Crosstown Concourse, I could go on and on. But with all the stories, there really is one element that runs throughout: the trust and confidence amongst the entire team that it takes for a project like this to be successful. And when you work with fellow MUS alum, there is a baseline of trust and integrity that you rely on without a second thought. This award is given to an MUS alum that is a well-rounded person of strong moral character and integrity. And as mentioned in the MUS Today article, there were over 15 MUS alum working on bringing Crosstown Concourse together, and I think every one of them meets those requirements. Beyond classroom skills, MUS teaches the importance of integrity, the importance of community, and the value of giving back. That is the true education that I know my boys are getting at MUS, and it is also the legacy they will inherit and will be expected to continue. Thank you again to the Alumni Board for this honor. It is humbling to be listed among those who have received the award. Thank you.
So I'm the only one of the three that didn't have a cum laude next to my name. I'm the only one that didn't write anything down, but I'll be brief. The stories definitely could go on and on. I'm glad he chose not to divulge some of the other stories that may put me in jail one day. But to the Alumni Board, I really appreciate this honor. It really is a humbling group of people to be with and to be around. I think when I came to Gil and his team about the Crosstown project, I figured out later that he was going to get paid anyway, so he didn't dissuade me from my naive thoughts and dreams about what could happen. But in all honesty, I think the thing that there's a couple things that are most special to me that I'll share. One is the commitment that I had, that Gil had, that the whole Grinder family and team had to serve Memphis well. And I tell you, I've been on a lot of construction jobs. Very rarely do I come away with my arm around a contractor. And that's just the nature of the business, which is unfortunate because I'd like to, but generally speaking, there's fiefdoms that are created, and when money's involved, then people can act unruly. Never had a cross word at all with Brett or any of his team. because really we're working for something that's beyond ourselves, right? So it wasn't about the nickel. It was really about the vision of providing something for Memphis that we all knew would be very special. And Gil and his team, I tell you, there's no way in the world anyone would be able to figure out how to put all the pieces together if there wasn't a lot of dedication, a lot of research, a lot of time, energy, and effort. And the other thing that I love about the project is really and truly it's a group effort. I mean, Gil mentioned there's you said 15 alums, and I love knowing that if you take anyone out of the mix, it doesn't happen. I mean, it was really, one, that complicated, and two, that intense and that necessary to have dedicated people and skilled people focused each and every day. And so, as was mentioned earlier, we've always said that success is out in the future. Getting to the closing table is not success. Even getting open is not success. But there have been glimmers of success. I mean, going into this project, we had a dream to create a Memphis or create a community and an idea that would better the city that we live in for our kids and for those that are in our community. And we had our grand opening the weekend after that terrible event in Charlottesville, Virginia. And so we were actually pretty nervous about, I think tensions were high across the country about what may happen in big group gatherings. And when I was sitting out looking at the audience a week after that and seeing the mix of the socioeconomic mix, the racial mix, the age mix of the people that showed up really for no other reason to just see a building, and it was pretty amazing to see the number of people that just came just to be a participant, and that was unbelievably special. And then about 45 minutes later, I'm next to Todd Richardson, who is the co-leader on the project with me. And there was a African-American girl who's probably about 22 who came up to us. She had tears in her eyes, and she said, I never thought that a building like this or a project like this or a place like this would be a place where I could be welcomed. For us, that was success. I mean, we had countless hours of making sure that we're developing, we're creating, we're doing this for Memphis, and it was mentioned the For Memphis, by Memphis. That is a lot of the people in this room, but it's also a lot of the people that aren't in this room, and that was important. That went down to the grinder team. That when we said we're going to have a high percentage, it ended up being over 30% of women and minority-owned businesses participate in this project. They said it can't be done because of the sheer magnitude of the contracts that are going to be issued. We said we got to find a way, and really hats off to the grinder team. They broke our building up into eight different projects to make sure that there were contracts of the size that could allow for minority and women-owned businesses to participate. So I could go on and on about the wonderful things that not only this building conjured up in us and our relationships, but then thinking about what it's doing for the community too. And hope is a really powerful emotion, and that was kind of the underlying theme, is that we would love to do something that gives our city hope, and I think through a lot of sheer will we accomplished that, and hopefully we can push that forward. But thanks, Brett and Gil, for the countless hours, and again, thank y'all for y'all's support too. It comes in tangible and intangible ways. So very grateful for the honor, and appreciate y'all being here.